Hey, Yichen, great to have you finally. I think we've been talking about this for a few months and I've been meaning to record this. So finally glad to have you, Yichen. We met, what, 6 months ago, 7 months ago? Do you remember?
I know we've been talking about this podcast ever since we met, and very glad you already made so many episodes.
Did we meet 6 months ago or was it longer?
Longer, slightly longer.
Yeah, I think what was very interesting, Yichen, when I met you, what stood out very early on, how you really enjoy connecting people. And then second thing I learned about you was your interest in data and how, as your first thing out of school, you wanted to build, Renaissance tech, Rentech in the VC world. Is that true?
That was partially true. So I think when I graduated, I didn't know better, so I jumped into the world of fraud detection. I think that's where the data mining can do the most good. So I worked quite a while for a Medicare and Medicaid system through a government contracting consulting company. But just like the current political stance, back then, arguably slightly better, but not that better. So the whole new project about applying this to the investment side becomes a very nice escape, as well as new things to work on with a fresh take on what I'm passionate about data can be applied.
And now you're building Fleek and you just recently raised a new round. Congratulations. You have some great investors in there. So two questions each. Where does this passion for data come from? And second, what does Fleek do?
Yes, I think data has just been so clear and dramaless when it comes to making any kind of decisions, rather. But at the same time, it can be like manipulated or misunderstood, interpreted by different human beings who are like expressing their opinions. So that's why I feel this is a great space to work in. My journey along the way from investor side or onto Fleek right now is that I always say it's not that different, even though a lot of people perceive it as a switch of the table side. It's not that different. At Rocket Ship, I've been always working on the algorithm building and productionize a lot of machine learning models. And then along the way, I discovered there is a data versus model gap. And like you always told me, like just go back to the first principle and thinking about the problem from a fresh take, seeing where it can be improved or rebuilt entirely. I'm pretty sure you have extensive experience from your both 3 years as well.
Yeah, completely agree, Each. And I think data is a very, very important problem. And I think it's just very interesting to see your journey where you're coming on the VC world and now building Fleek, right? And so when you think about Fleek, do you think you're addressing and what is your vision to address like biggest pain point of your customers through Fleek?
Yes, I think in the past decade, we had made so many interesting toolings to just interpreting we call human-generated data sets. It can be business intelligence, spreadsheet, or a picture that you take from your phone at different angles. But there's a massive, we call black data or dark data that we don't see or we don't get to utilize is actually generating every second on our devices and in the physical world. And Fleek was exactly designed with that mission in mind is that we want to enable all the devices and systems, whether they're running in your cloud or in your phones, that be able to communicate with each other because there is no such thing as a translator built for machines. And so that's where Fleek comes in.
I understand the value when, you talk about Fleek to me, right? Like coming from computer science background. But when you are working with large enterprises and your customers are very, very large enterprises, how do you go think about the problems of different departments who are not technical, right? So it could be HR. I mean, IT is technical, but HR, finance, operations, right? What in your mind data transformation will mean to them, right? Like how are they dealing with data today? And what do you think, what could the future look like for them?
Yes, exactly. I think it's not a unique problem. It's such an old problem. And I feel like, especially these days, and when we are talking to the IT operations or even talking to HR divisions or marketing divisions, and even though they're not technical, they realize the power of data sets is very important to move their performance forward. The issue we're seeing is always like different silos and different human teams in charge of different aspects of the business. And for example, if the procurement want to make a decision or budgetary decisions, then they need to gather all the information from engineering team, from marketing team, all the way to even sales divisions to understand whether such a allocation is reasonable. However, that process itself, even today, with all the magic ERP systems and CRMs that we're using, there is no straight line or easy way for them to gather information from different places. So that's what we call silos or islands. That's pretty hard to navigate.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And if you think of other departments, like IT is more equipped than other departments in an organization, how do you think they should even think about in today's world about consolidating data? Is there opportunity for them to do something internally, or do they have to get something like Fleek to even think about this consolidation and translation?
I feel it's really a enterprise by enterprise scenario. I think we run into really big corps like Netflix. They have millions of engineering armies that they build their own data lakes, and for compliance reasons, certain things should be handled in house. And Flix is never coming into the standpoint whether you have to choose between building or buying. We're there to enable you to build more or enable you to utilize whatever is in your existing tech stacks to perform better. So first, I think look at the restrictions on your headcount. If you have enough engineers cover different aspects, or your legacy systems comes with a lot of tech debt and no one or no more than magic power can fix, then probably start from there. But if you're slowly in accommodating and want to unify a lot of data sets, maybe it's a time to considering some modern tech stack tools like Databricks and Snowflake. They're great options. Um, and Fleek has a fabric layer. We kind of utilize and leverage the modern data stacks and for our customers to achieve that goal.
So, would you say, Jin, there would be a lot more benefits driven by non-tech companies today because they may not have internal tech teams to implement something like this? What are your thoughts on that? Like when I'm thinking about construction companies or, JCBs of the world or a food, Coca-Colas of the world, where their core is not technology, right? How do they even think about this?
Yeah, I wouldn't even bother thinking about building this in-house.
Yeah,
Data
right.
product exists for a reason, right? Because
Yeah.
it's on its own
Yeah.
core business. And if your job is to building great buildings and selling great products, then probably you shouldn't be worried too much about the data infra.
I'm curious, Ejin, we talk about data transformation. Could we just like about like a very simple example, which has like no tech word attached to it? Like if we go in today's agentic world and we talk about HR that, hey, we can automate all of this, like what does even data transformation mean for them? Right? When we're talking about finance, like what does that mean? Because it's such a broad terminology.
Basically, data transformation can be so broad as a definition. I think we used to think about, or we're just adding column A to B. That's more of an Excel sheet kind of a data transformation. But now, when we're talking about data transformation in specifically, like let's say HR or a non-technical divisions context, the data transformation should be like turning any kind of raw information into the format that meaningful to you. So a simple example would be, let's say Abhishek logged on today to check his email, right? So it can be a list of activities from a human user. But HR probably only cares, hey, Abhishek checked in and logged on today or swiped his badge today, 8 a.m. From Abhishek as a user, from IT perspective, to a data point that HR thinks is meaningful because, hey, this person coming to work today. And here you go. That is a very, very different way of thinking about transformation.
When you think about, there are a lot of startups who are implementing this today, Jin, like many startups. I think recently I was talking to a friend of mine and he was so big on data transformation that he said, "Oh, Abhishek, you should think about data transformation." I said, "Everybody is doing it." So what do you think people are missing? Or do you think there is a future where there would be so many different products because everybody's need is so different? There could not be a universal translator for data. Like, is there such a thing? Like, there's a universal translator?
I would say there is such a thing when there's a specific vertical in mind. But with that said, I wouldn't say like a universal translator for HR would work the same way for someone from a construction team, right? Because the context, or arguably the universe here, is different. And I think data product is a two cohort of data products. One is setting really foundational like a database. It doesn't have any flavor or industrial context, and you can kind of put them as your baseline cement or bricks, and then on top of it you will have all these very smart, intelligent, context-aware AI agents from these data companies, able to customize these data services or endpoints exactly to your use case.
And when you see other startups, and I would love to get your perspective, even though it's maybe biased, what do you think they're missing when you see other startups that they're approaching this problem of data transformation?
I mean, like multimodal is getting very popular. Um, so I don't know, like they're very important for training foundational models. But I would be personally very excited to see like how that kind of multimedia kind of data files getting being utilized or leveraged in the real industrial settings other than model training, because that's will be arguably more important and uh, tangible for our day-to-day life. So I feel like context is the key. Yeah.
So I understand, Yichen. So I think if you take the multimodal data, that's just a hard problem to solve, right? Even if we go back to, just basic logs and raw data dumps and dispersions of data, right? Like it may be just PDF files or some paper that is getting translated. Do you think people are missing something when they're approaching the problem in general when you see around this?
Yeah, I see a lot of we call the performance competitions. Um, how fast you can run the query and how big, how much of data you can store or on-prem to the cloud kind of movement. But I think it's less than about whether startups are doing right or wrong, because that's usually what they focus on is very much guided by their customer. But I feel as the newer generation of data companies, because we have the expertise and we should be have a better interpretation on how certain data should be used or stored. Is it really necessary to dump everything and everywhere into a warehouse, and just because you want it to be there, or it's actually meaningful for your business operation and for the downstream human users to get insights as fast as possible? I think that's the gap that we really need to close.
As you think about this transformation, Jen, how much of the difficulty is around the compliance and the privacy side of things? How do you even think about it when you're building?
Oh my God, I think that side is getting stricter and stricter, and it becomes like a very, very hard topic. I think I recently see like a lot of models are using data publicly, but the original owner is not very happy about it. I think that's just only the beginning. It will be a constant fight. And then we talk about like GDPRs, ISOs, and these just always going to be a overhead on the company side. I think data in the end of the day will be a very valuable asset to people or companies, whoever owns it. So I do believe compliance is extremely important, especially now AI agents are everywhere. We need to protect our own data sets.
And Nitin, on this, on the follow up on the compliance side, so there's two ways, right? So when I'm talking to enterprises today, there is a lot of apprehensions around agents or any transformation that is going to happen with the data, right? So how the buyers can manage that risk and still, like, how do you think about this, right? There may not be a perfect answer here. How do the buyers and IT and HR can think about at least going for an agentic startup or a solution like yours and minimizing their risk? Do you think there is an approach that they can think about versus just saying that, hey, we're just going to wait and watch? I mean, any thoughts on that?
So I will say treat AI just like another employee. And my like doesn't need rest or doesn't need like all the benefits, but it's like a skillful person, but without any training or onboarding process, it doesn't really do a good job. So I think I will start from there. There is don't treat it as like a magic box. It's not, but it can do brilliant things. And just like how people train their new employees, you won't hand them over the most important production tasks like wire transfers on their CFO division on their first day of job. You always like slow in, and once they learn on the job, you can give them more and more mission critical tasks. So that's the way I would approach it. But definitely start early because the sooner like they can learn, the sooner they will do a much better job to help you.
I love your analogy, Chen, about an employee, because I think what is the risk when we hire an employee or a contractor? How much data that we are sharing? And maybe the argument that I think about it with agents, actually, you can give them data that you actually didn't trust certain part of humans to give, right? Because they are not going to store and go to the next competitors of yours and diverse that data, right? Like if I'm looking at my CRM and I'm trying to process CRM, the first thing that I worry about is no matter what NDAs are signed, that agents are not going to go and it's like go to my next best competitor. And maybe my competitor is just trying to hire my staff to just get that data, right? So, yeah, so I think you make an excellent point where that can be restricted. And I think the further thing to think about is how a lot of these models have zero data retention. So you can get the benefit of processing it and not store the data. And the data with a platform like yours can still sit in Snowflake or, Databricks, right? So it's still sitting in your or AWS.
Yeah, that's why we're already seeing like a very strong wave of either they call it private deployment or on-prem is becoming almost quite a reverse trend, but it's very real for this reason. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even when I talk to enterprises, they feel just so much more comfortable. It's like a solution containerized. It's like this, the comfort level or to adopt these things is much, much higher. So I think if we think about this, there may be more data privacy and more data compliance with agents than less actually, because we don't think about, coming from security and phishing world, how much BC scams and how much data we end up giving via email or some spam phone call that is not happening with these agents, at least not for now, right?
Yes, and I would say like I think the industry in general is focusing more and more on the control side. There's a lot of AI security built to serve this purpose, but of course it's always more we call it air gapped when the agent it belongs to and only is to your environment and unable to talk to the external parties.
And on the flip side, Eden, as you're building the startup, how do you think about getting past these issues of data compliance, working with large enterprises? Like, what advice would you have? Like now, what year and a half into Fleek? And you have like one of the hardest, like huge sort of friction to get a data product in, which is good. But because once you're in, you have very, very high retention rate and very good NDR. So what are your learning lessons so far? How do you think about future, and what would be your advice to fellow founders?
I think pick your battle. I think we learned this early on. We can't really fight every battle, and there is no such thing as a data product like able to handle every single data use cases. We picked out our niche and designed the product accordingly for that niche use case. And compliance will always going to be there for any startup trying to break into enterprise world. So yes, SOC 2 is painful, but it's always nice to have it early on, so you can check that off the list sooner. I think when we're in the motion of selling or illustrating the product point, if you can understand the customer's needs or their industrial context better by preparing something, some sample data sets that be similar to they might be seeing on a day-to-day basis, that would be a much better story to tell during the conversations.
I know you're getting towards the end, but I do have to ask this question, right? As you think about, you said this word, like focus on your niche. And how do you balance when you're going raising money, like teaching your, it's like think about TAM and your use cases? Because where you're sitting, you can do many, many use cases, right, as a product. So how do you balance that urge to do more and focus? And also when you think about investments, because a lot of founders, why it's like, are you too narrow of a product, right? So how do you balance that?
I think narrow in terms of like you really have to have the wedge to break into the ecosystem or whatever, whichever ecosystem you're trying to break in. That's arguably the only way for startup to survive. But once you have that wedge, I think things will become a lot more natural. People will start telling you repeatable things. Once you hear their problem 3 times, 4 times, and to the point that before they even speak, you kind of guess what they're gonna tell you. And I think that's our like golden rule of saying, "Hey, I might have found out something," and that's a good signal to build towards. But of course, it's easier said than done. When big customer asks you to do something, you probably do something, but for us, we're being very cautious about allocating the resources for these, and worst cases, just build them. If there is no willingness to pay, that probably tell you there is no need to build either.
I think I like how you guys sometimes you just have to build it to get the customer. There's just no other way, even though it's not scalable at the moment. And there's just a learning lesson and we move on, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes not scalable is not necessarily a bad thing. It might tell you a different path you just didn't think about.
So shifting gears, Yichen, these are like very quick questions to know a little bit more about you. So as I've gone to know you, I think you're one of the best people connectors I know. And maybe a few others come to mind.
You
Who
probably
in
do
your
better.
mind, and no, I think you're way, way better. But who do you think come to mind and who's that you admire the ability to connect?
I think I really like my coworker and founder of EchoHer. I think Q is building the community as an NGO and naturally just provide a very safe space for all the founders, especially female founders, to gather together and share their vulnerabilities and resources to achieve something great together. And I really like admire how she just being like almost like an introvert, but still be able to connect people in her very natural way. And she's extremely patient as well. So I learned a lot from her to become like a very engineering minded person, but also be able to connect to.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, thank you for introducing me to Q. I would agree. I think I'm just amazed how helpful she is in connecting people and not really expecting much, which is very, very rare to see. And she was hosting an event yesterday, which she was supposed to be there. It was a fantastic location. And it was really fun. And she was basically bartender. So it was really see what she's doing with the community. Yes, she was. She made multiple drinks. And I completely agree. So I think it's really, really good to see. And I would not have thought of you as an introvert. So it's very interesting you say that.
Yes, like I heard a saying, when you become a founder, it doesn't matter, you will become an extrovert.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You have no choice. So second question: if Fleek grows beyond your wildest dreams and your massive success, what do you think would change in the world?
That's, I think, not to me, not wildest dream. I think it's like very real. That finally, like maybe your fridge can talk to your phones, and satellite will monitor, be able to tell things in a very low response latency fashion. I think everything is possible. That's the my imaginary kind of world. So the communication
I
barrier
love
all
that
broken.
description, Yichen. I think that's the best description. Best description you have given for Fleek. My fridge can talk to my satellite. That would be really
Yes,
nice.
exactly.
I know you're like really ahead and you read a lot of papers even when you go to the beach. What do you think from your perspective? From your perspective, is the most overrated tech trend?
Most overrated tech trend. Um, I don't know. I tend to be very cautious about research because it just maybe because we're not smart enough to see what coming in our way in 10 years. But in terms of hype wise, yeah, I feel model training might be a little hyped, but I understand why big company do that. I just don't see smaller companies have the necessity anymore, or even I would argue enterprise level. Doesn't matter how big or rich you are, you should start training your own model. I think it just doesn't make any sense. It would just become part of the default infrastructure for our time. And I also feel like AI SDRs are a little overrated, just from a founder's perspective. I think human touch, in the end of the day, is what make deals happen. It's very true. I think our channels or our attention span has been overcrowded with a lot of AI content. I think what's in the end of the day shines through is that magic human touch. So that's my take on overhype.
Okay, one last one, Nichin, before I let you go. What is your favorite book this year that you've read?
Never split the difference. It's already a very popular book. I think I just learned a lot of negotiation or how to be an empathetic person, and not just being empathetic, but in a way that the whoever you're talking to can understand that you care about their standing point. So that's really make great conversations in general. And I think founders always have like a self mind. And now I learned that sometimes keep your mouth shut is better than keep talking. So that's a great book and a very easy read. Highly recommend for everyone. Yeah, I even able to use a technique that mentioned in the book to argue the airline for a nice refund. Yeah, that will be my recent favorite book.
Thank you, Nichin. Thanks for sharing it. I'll check it out. Again, this has been really fun. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And we need to do more because I think I disagree on a few points on model training part. So that would be another conversation we'll save. But absolute blast, Nichin, and I'll see you soon. Take care.
Yeah, thank you.